you guys hear me? I can't hear you.
Me?
Now,
Now I can.
Can you hear me, Tom?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Good evening.
I don't know, it's, don't have immediate number for.
do you have any agenda changes?
The only thing I would, it wasn't on there, was just the annual report, which we go over briefly, but I would just put at the end in my comments and nothing for vote, because I know Greg hasn't had opportunity to see it yet.
Okay. Do you have any public comment? Do you have any public comment? No public comment? Approval of the minutes?
Yeah, we can't do because we don't have, can't do because we don't have a quorum right now until Val gets here. So we can't approve anything.
We'll skip that then and go to older ongoing business.
Not yet. I didn't have a number available. Do you have a number for him? Yeah, they should. I know there's a recall roster in there.
I think I have a number.
Sheet at home with everybody's name and number. I haven't updated that one I had. and then Michelle gave me one. It's everything has to update on my binders and lists and all that. If he gets here, we can, for the quorum votes, we need to have an official quorum to approve any motions, but I think we can still go over to discussions like we normally would with the site plan review, because there's no voting and stuff on that point at this point, so.
Ask a question, is the one gentleman on the planning commission member?
Yes, one of the two that's on there, I think.
Yeah, Tom is actually the president,
The chair, Tom.
chair,
Butler.
yeah.
I was thinking if he makes your report.
No, unfortunately, because of the Michigan Openness Act and the you can't have a quorum via Zoom, and we have to treat. Yeah, the conditions are that you're a military deployed overseas or there. Yeah, but it doesn't fit the stuff we had. That was during COVID, we could, and then the state came down with the governor's stuff that we could not. And we've, all the boards in the state, because there's other kind of like stuff in the county as well. So we can have the people come on there and participate via the open comment, or if we have questions directly, we can pose them to the people on there. But other than that, it's what we have here is what we have to go with for the quorum numbers.
Jason, he gets on the number in his office.
We should be able to go over old and ongoing business. We have the review for Kilmer proposed storage building, the site development plan.
My guess is I have a checklist that I've gone through my own personal thing. I can create one or just basically use that as a starting point to write on for other people's comments and stuff. My recommendations that we just go through the checklist one item at a time. And for this, and then if you need, you've got one, you've got one.
Mhm.
No, I'm good to go, and he's good to go right here. And I'd recommend asking him to come up here at the table, if you would, please. You can both come up here if you like.
Madam Chair,
And could I get your names, please? Again,
I'm Robert Stiverson from the D&M site.
how do you spell your name? For the
STI, V as in Victor, ERSON,
And again, who you're with, you said?
D&M site.
That the surveyor, the plan developer? Okay. Then it was Dwayne Kemmer. Okay, got that.
And via Zoom is Josh. Kemmer.
Okay. Just for clarification on here, I'm just trying to fill out some of the stuff in our checklist, which we gave you a copy, I think, a couple months ago. Did you still have that, or?
If
We-
I do, I don't have it
Okay,
with me.
okay, we can get another one for you. No, we've got that right there. And we can give them a blank. Yeah. We'll get you a blank copy of the checklist stuff, which you go through, and again, on here, there's a cover page with basic stuff. And then we have all the items that are basically taken out of the zoning ordinance. And then we're cross-referenced with the section number of the zoning ordinance, so it's easy reference. And then we just put our comments and stuff on here. And then from that, we can, it just helps us go through this because there's a lot of things in the ordinance itself that are in multiple places and stuff. And so it's hard to go through just flipping back and forth. And by doing, this is something we established a couple of years ago. So everything on the checklist is in the zoning ordinance and attuned to it. And then we just kind of use this as a guide to go through. And we essentially use it each time. Some of the items in the list that, may be missing or not here at this time, may or may not be required for the completion of a preliminary site plan review, which this is. And then some we need on the final. So at the end of all this stuff, we'll go over it and then we'll sum all the items we consider deficient or missing, that we would like you to, readdress. Those will be posted in the minutes, and then we'll send you a separate letter with those things on there as well as incorporate them into the minutes of the stuff. And now we've been recording these minutes or these on Zoom. So my understanding is new to the township that they are going to be making all these meetings that are done by Zoom here, archivable, that you can go back and reference if there was questions or something you have. And that website hasn't officially been posted yet, but it will be at some time here in the near future, hopefully. Okay. Yeah, and then is there, I looked today, I didn't see a link to anything on there, which you mentioned before at this point. So if you did, just by searching YouTube and Gerrish Township, you could find it. Okay. I would have a question while we're waiting for Tom online. Did you get a chance to go over the checklist at all and do a review, which we can get later from you?
Yeah, I've got a whole list of notes and stuff. I can forward up so you can get it to them and so.
Okay. All right. Did you see anything from Greg at all? And that I know he's out of pocket this week.
He didn't have anything to share regarding this.
This one at this point. Okay. All right. So do you want to run through the thing or want me to? Okay. So I'm just going to start with the basically the cover page stuff. I got your property number down here written. Won't necessarily repeat that. You're at Northcutt Road. There's no definite address at this point on that location. No numbered address. I'm just,
Yeah,
yeah, it's fine. I'm just doing it for just trying to get the information put on this. So we got the applicants, so yourself and Josh Kemmerer. The representative you have here is Robert Stiverson from D&M Sites. And I know you're looking at doing another potential site plan or storage complex near Robinson Road and West Higgins Lake Drive. I don't know if you're still planning on it yet, but okay.
if we can go ahead with this.
This one, okay. So is there an official name of the site I saw on the,
I think my son come up with Higgins Lake Self-Storage.
okay, yeah, I saw that on one of the things. I just want to be able to distinguish it from the other one if you're going to be doing two, so. No, that's the other one, but I saw it on there, so I just wanted to clarify that. And are you going to be the builders too
Yep,
okay. And what's the builder's official name?
Wayne Kemmer Builder.
Okay. All right, so we got the property number, zoning district. This is the C1 district. It'll be for commercial use. And also it's a special land use because of the site plan or because of the mini storage in the C1 district. And with that, we're going to make a recommendation for the final, and once we get through the final site plan, that's got to go through the Gerrish Township Board for final approval in accordance with the zoning ordinance for special use land use requests, which this falls under. The right. So in the checklist, is divided up in several sections. The first section is just a review or it's listing of all the documents that may or may not be required for here, and we can give you an option, or we'll just go over these things one at a time. The first one's the public hearing. The way we do things after we believe we have sufficient information for the preliminary site plan review, then we'll schedule a public hearing. And that's usually like a 15-minute period. It gives the local folks a chance to come in and voice their opinion one way or the other for it. And then usually what happens after that is we might do that just prior to the meeting or just prior to our next meeting. Then we would, at that point, consider stuff. We do then we make the recommendation whether it satisfies the everything satisfied for preliminary site plan review. We make a recommendation to the Gerrish Township Board. So it then has to go to the board for their approval of the preliminary site plan. And after that, it comes back to us. We do a final site plan review. If there's no significant changes, to the plan, whatever, we do not need to have another public hearing, and then the board would approve it. Now, if we consider the stuff sufficient at the even prior to the public hearing or just after, that everything in here is sufficient for the preliminary site plan review and the final site plan review. We did it how we did the last site plan for the unit there are units that are going up currently that, the board was able to do an approval of both the preliminary and the site plan review at their same board meeting. So the regular board meets, once a month on the second Tuesday of the month. So there's some, due to the Public Hearings Act, there's some requirements. We have to have, notification. I believe it's, 18 hours for the public hearing advance notice that we have to post on the various, things. So, we'll go through this right here and then see where we are. We don't have obviously a quorum right now officially to do anything. So, we'll address the, public hearing and that good stuff at a later time. Okay, with that, we've received, the documents we received are your site plan. Or first is the application. They said you'd paid money already according to here, for the application of the site plan review. You've included, descriptions of the lots. Also, what we have received is a one-page diagram of I guess, the primary site plan portion. And then we received some email inputs to you that we provided, and you gave some feedback from our last meeting. So we have that. I haven't looked through this up here. Are there additional drawings and stuff on top of this one up here?
The one that sheet 3 is the important one. And-
Okay.
And
But yeah, eventually, like in the whole thing, we're gonna need, like say, 10 copies of all this stuff to the building. And then a lot of these other things down here are individual planning documents. So, or that maybe diagrams or not. So I don't know if you included a whole bunch of things in there.
well, right now, they just want to know that the project, basically can go forward, before they put a bunch of money into engineering and building plans and all that kind of stuff. They want to know that we're on the right track. So there is, some things like the building elevations, things like that aren't in there. But there was, Josh, I know, dropped off 3 large sets and 7 of the small sets. So there should have been the 10 sets delivered.
Okay, yeah, that may have, we just haven't.
Yeah.
This body here. Jason, have you received?
Everything you have is what I received.
Okay.
Guess I'm not sure who
Yeah,
Josh talked to.
Yeah, I brought them up a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
All right, so we've got the application. One of the things we require is a narrative, project narrative, which includes, essentially, it's like a 1 or 2 page summary of all the things like the documents you have, and addresses some of the statements we asked for of confirmation whether or not certain other like reports are whether they're required or may not be required for this instance. And so anyway, it's kind of like an executive summary of the whole package that we have separate. And then a lot of those things you may put individually on the different site plan portions, like people do as insets into the box, into the drawing areas. Yeah, I mean, the example is like, okay, we're doing this build of X number of buildings with so many units that are generally of these sizes. Here's the documents we've incorporating to you. Here's some of the statements, and some things later on, like I guess for some, I can't think of off the top of my head, but the like hazard type stuff, or like it's just a statement. Yeah, there's not going to be any hazard stuff on here, and you just put that as a individual statement. So it's into the narrative summary in addition to where you put it elsewhere. That we have everything on one easy readable fashion up front. So the narrative is one thing that's missing. The site plan, we have the primary one. The vicinity sketch, that would be something that you have a location map on here, but the vicinity sketch is just another thing that outlines, and is specified in the ordinance with it's kind of a diagram like this right here, but it gives several of the properties next to it, okay, these are C1 or C2 or residential areas, stuff.
So
So
you want basically the zoning on the location map.
yes. And that goes out with, I think, 300 feet into the properties, immediately next to the area. Then there would be elevation drawings of all the buildings. And then floor plans for the buildings to be occupied. And that would essentially be the units. Again, here's that statement. Some cases that you may or may not be or aware of for this, there may be some laws depending on some of the areas, swamplands or something like that, that may or may not require special permits. So when the assumption there is if there's any permits required that you believe are required, whatever, we'd like you to put that on the form. Say, okay, here's ones that are required or and if there are none, just, a statement that there are no special permits required. Traffic mitigation. Let's see, I'm getting ahead of myself. Environmental impact and mitigation report, if required. If not, I think you said something in your email. I couldn't find it. Jason, are you aware of any environmental impact thing? I don't know if there was one from the last, I don't recall one being from required for the one that's going up nearby. And have you talked to the road commission at all about the traffic entry exits? One of the concerns is, and with the other units around there, you got a real big S bend in there, with traffic going at a fair rate of speed and then people coming and going, stopping if there's any lines. So, traffic buildup, that is a concern that I know it was concerned with the other one too. And, you're a little bit down, a little bit different spot, but to set, there is recommended you go talk to the road commission. And I know they supposedly did a traffic ability survey, I think, where they put some speed things up there, just kind of give a flow of traffic at a certain time. And I don't know what the reports are from that, but that's just, something you should address with the road commission to see if they have any issues where you're currently located, where your entry exit points are going to go. And they may be able to give you some insight on what their study showed for the traffic. And then the question is, based upon the people that are coming and going, what's your expected rate of, and traffic high periods when people come and go into the area to get their stuff from the facilities. One thing up here, I'll note that I know from previous places, there are some, different needs sometimes, in these communities like the lake stuff versus just like a regular city, suburban environment where you got people doing it for different reasons. One of the big things up here is people using storage units for is to get recreational vehicles, storm and then be able to get access to them for the weekends and stuff. So, that may or may not affect. I see you have different size units and stuff, which I assume would, accommodate some of those things, which I believe is a good thing to, what the community wants rather than just, storage from somebody's house. And with that, there's a lot of people that tend to come up here on Thursdays and Friday evenings now and want to get their boats out, late at night as soon as they get up here so they can be in line first thing at 6 o'clock in the morning, at the road ends or state parks to be able to get their stuff in the lake for the day or for the weekend. So that's something that's maybe a little different than some of the city things that you may or may not have. I don't know if you've done anything in this type of area before, but it's one of the additional considerations. Property line survey. Does this meet the requirements for that?
I believe it does.
Okay. And then the other thing we asked is a general schedule of anticipated project completion. And so we're looking at for here for, especially like for the final stuff, if you're going to do it in like one phase or the whole thing at once, or if you're going to kind of break it up into one or two or three phases, we're not looking for by this September 20th, you're going to be done with this. We're just looking for, if we do these units, once the start date would be here, and then roughly X number of months from the start date when we'd expect those portions of the project to be major things to be completed, like, the foundation and the buildings going up, and then, potential use or when the project's completion. Okay. The next one, it's a site plan should be provide, quality drawings, not less than 1 inch per 100 feet. So this is just making sure you got all the seals and stamps and stuff for all the copies of the things you submit. So right now we don't have anything more than this right here, but if we get the other ones, we need to make sure that stuff's all on there and annotated. So, again, with the name and address and stuff of each, which is, you'll see it on the checklist. So that for A, B, C, there, the vicinity sketch I mentioned, we want with the component, there's the specifications on that checklist. So that's something that needs to be included. For 2E, property line survey, you've got that. Look with this one right here. 2G, identify natural features within or on 300 feet of the site, including the woodlands, bodies, the plain area, so everything on here. Now, I believe, Jason, we would get a separate for the ID of the natural features. Would that be something just included on the main site plan, or would we need to say, okay, so we don't need a separate drawing for that? So I would just put, add these features. I think some of them may be on this current one, but we need to make sure they all are. See, 2H is ID, the required front side rear setbacks for principal buildings in the district. You did that. I believe it's really on our version. It's hard to see, but I saw a block down here. You had specified the stuff. I think there was a question at the last meeting about on some of the edges was
Wooded area, or what are you talking about exactly?
yeah. Well, we talked about that some of the areas. I think there was some issue with it being a little bit too close for this building A.
Yeah, too close to the property line, right?
Yeah.
And then runoff, water runoff and stuff.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah.
One of the concerns was, is building E to the south. It's only got a setback of 9 foot, which is what the ordinance requires as a minimum. And I don't know the construction of the building, which way the roof's gonna drain. I'm assuming it's gonna be a gable roof, so it'll drain in two directions, front to back. But I think if we're gonna have, we'd like to see landscaping in there, a buffer of landscaping along the property line. And you need to control the water, the drainage needs to stay on your property. I just don't think 9 feet's gonna let you do that. If you leave trees around the perimeter, I know they're not big trees in that area, they're more, I think, jack pine type stuff, but you know, you almost need 20 feet just for the branches of the tree to stick out and all that sort of thing. And trees are not in a straight line, so you're gonna be going back and forth. So what I was looking at is that building I thought needed to be moved back off the line in order to accomplish these other issues that are gonna be there. I mean, you could do things where you could create a berm or some type to control the water to make sure it follows to the northeast. But that was my concern there, was that building was a little tight. The other thing on the site plan that we have is, I believe the minimum between buildings is 30 feet, or is it 35
Yeah,
feet?
no, it's 30 feet.
Okay, so you got two of them with, you know, 20, one's 25, one's 23. So those would need some look at. And basically the west on Ivy Road, I like what you've done proposing there. I'd like to see as much landscaping left in place and added to, if anything. We do have a residential house across from your property on the southwest corner there. You can see the driveway. So just in lieu of them, I look at this, it's a commercial use, low impact. I think it's the right type of use for the area, because we don't consider this an industrial park where you would just clear it off and put up all the buildings and it'd just be one building after another type thing. I think we want to see the up north feel kept. You know, we want your project to be successful and all that sort of thing, but we want to be conscious that the zoning across the street is, I think it's, what's it, rural conservation, which is very low density housing and that type of thing. So we want your project to blend in, and you know, these are just some of the things that I've thought of that I'd like to see on the next site plan. That and they are required. You guys just need to look at the project to the south of you. That's another parcel down. They actually, with their site, had to put in a retention pond to control the runoff and stuff. I know in one of your email that you came back, the snow storage, you were proposing to put it up in the front or the west side with all the drainage running to the east. And that's fine if you can, you know, snow melts slow typically, so you won't probably get a big issue there. But these are all the things that I want to, you know, that we want to see on the plan, other than the basic stuff, that the nuts and bolts and things. You know, eventually we'll want to see drawings of the buildings, elevations, all that sort of stuff.
Can I just say one thing, or ask a question to see if it's okay? It's something we've had to do it on another building as far as drainage with building E. Would a possible solution be to put a tiled drain behind that building, fill it with pea stone, gravel, that type of thing, and then that way all the water runoff from the building drains into that, goes right into that drain, and it's all drained away?
I don't see any reason why you couldn't propose that at all.
Okay. It's just something we've
Good
had to do in the
compromise.
past, and it seemed to work well, because
Sure.
I understand what you're saying with the 9 feet and the water run off the roof. And I think that might be a, you know, solution.
Right. And in some of these, we don't need to specify exactly what you need to do. We just, you know, we're also, you know, looking, you know, here's the general guidance, and then, you know, propose something to us. how you'd handle some of that stuff for us to evaluate. One of the things I forgot to ask right away, all these buildings, are they accessible on both sides? I mean, building E, I would assume no. But are the other buildings, in the middle, like,
A and E
Or just
only
one
gonna be
side?
accessible on one side.
okay. And then, B, C, and D would then be accessible both sides with
Yep.
the units. And that's where that 30-foot specification quantifier, states that if you have two buildings that have access to facing each other, that's where you need the 30 feet. So that would, yeah, so that would apply between essentially all the inner spaces here. Thanks, Tom.
And then we also did talk about the last building that went in, the colors of the building. We wanted it to also be with the nature. We did suggest some type of forest greens or browns or something, or tans, or, some type of colors that would blend in more.
Would it be possible for you to give us on paper what colors you would like us to choose from? We don't want to have the same colors as
Is it the other one?
facility that's going up now, which I haven't been by there lately, so I don't even know if they have doors up. But we definitely don't want to be the same color.
In the past, we have used blue, but yeah, we can go with a different color if that's something
They
that.
already told us they don't like blue.
Well, there's
Oh.
some, I would say there's some shades, and I'm not thinking like a bright blue, but there are some, I've seen some more subtle ones that are kind of like a dark grayish. Well, almost like the color of my shirt right here, that are even darker, that when, that basically, I see that in the neighborhood I'm at, or some of the buildings. I know, I just throw out there's some other colors out there. Doesn't necessarily have to be green. We could look at some, and if you have some, the primary thing is, we'd like something that kind of blends in with the area. It doesn't stick out, like a sore thumb, kind of a thing, like, you got all the green stuff and this bright red or bright, white, you want something more subdued. And if you have preferences on some of those colors, you could, maybe give us some options to say, hey, here's what you'd like to see, but that's, be sufficient, or with the board. I would go with that, just something that, instead of dictating exactly
Yeah,
show us what you would like that fits in what you think,
yeah,
even if
I
it's a
could get
two-tone.
colors.
Yeah, kind of blended in with the environment, kind of just. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and there can. And some, I mean, if you do like a two-tone, like for, the eaves or something like that, some of it doesn't have to be all one color.
Do you guys happen to know what color that exists or the facility that's going up is?
I actually,
If not, it's not a big deal.
yeah, we have that, and I think we have the official name on that. We'll have to get back to you on that.
That's fine.
I think it's some kind of green, forest green, or
Their colors are typically white, royal blue. Yes, them to do something along these lines, but I believe they get that a forest green. Probably find that color.
yeah, and give you the name of it, but yeah, so that's something up to you, what colors you really want to use, and then we'll just,
Well, yeah, we'll definitely get something figured out.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, something that you're happy with, just. We don't want to dictate, but just something that blends in.
And in light of the checklist stuff, that comes at a little bit later thing, so we'll hit it again here, so. Get back to there. Okay, the narrative again, we talked about up front, that was just listening to the documents. Here's the general topics we'd like to see in the narrative. And 2L or 2I. The 2J was the proposed public right of way, private easements and deed restrictions. So there, this may or may not be applicable to you, because right now it's wooded area, so there's another. If you're, that's something that I would state in the narrative is if there's a public right of way kind of thing here, you're just basically an an exit entry into your facility. There's no other like roads going back behind here. So I would just state that in the narrative, and then also if you're aware of any deed restrictions or private easements, I don't think there are in here, but I'm not sure. So just basically restate that if they are not. There was something that we can. Okay, we can give that to him afterwards. He was showing us the color schemes of. I mean, if you had like a trademark, a set of colors or something you used and they were, kind of too bright or not in there, then maybe there could be some derivation towards the earth tones of those colors or something that. Okay, 2K is the proposed roads, drives, and alleys. The direction of travel. One of the concerns, the fire chief was, Jim Fisher was here at the last meeting, and we asked him a couple questions about this, and I think there was some concern about the backside of these areas too, for the vehicles to get through. That's something you could just, I would recommend talking to the fire department here for their emergency vehicle requirements if they actually need, like the case for building A and building E, if they actually needed access behind it, or is that access down the road sufficient on the other side of it? The other thing he did say, I'll bring up, I'm thinking about it. You mentioned the drainage ponds and stuff. The other unit, the complex that just went in, or that's going in right now, they actually put a big kind of field up there. Again, the fire chief said that because of where that's located close to your property, that you would not need to do something like that. That takes away a big chunk of, it wasn't annotated on here. You still have some drainage stuff to figure out, but it's like the retention pond is not required for here because he said that, and that's for fire purposes where you can draw water and stuff out of there fairly quickly. And he's a department. C2L, the location of public utilities and water disposal, sewage, communication lines. You put the utilities on here. There's another thing you could put with the special lighting plan to annotate those things in more detail. Or you could include it on here. I know you did some utilities, and I'm looking for like where are you going to have a regular building for a septic? And are you going to have a regular office building on here? Okay. And that's something I don't know. Jason, do you know the requirements? I haven't looked in depth, but if they don't have an office building, do they still require a septic system? Okay. And the same thing with water. Do they have a water? They don't. Okay. Okay, for 2M, accessory building structures, including trash receptacles, enclosures, signs, and lighting. Do you intend to have any you know, like major trash bins. Dump, yeah. Okay, right, okay, and that's, I believe, recalling the other people, some of the same thing. They don't want to, if they put one out there, it then becomes a repository for all the other units and their storage things that you don't want to do there. Yeah. Okay.
Real quick, we talked about that with the other building too. We wanted to make sure it was, so it wasn't, light pollution, like they were more down lights than bright lights lighting up the whole area.
And yeah, and there's specifications on, in the ordinance itself about, you know, how many lumens and stuff per detectable from X number of feet. And it says the graphic illustration of the location, extent of the natural features in the site, which will be disturbed, and other areas cleared, and those. This is the thing I correct me if I think different. I think this is something that could be, if you did a landscaping plan as a separate like drawing, just include that, those kind of items on that drawing. Okay, 2.0 landscaping screening plan. Again, this is, we like to see a separate site drawing for that. 2P grading, storm drainage, stormwater management plan. Again, as I mentioned, this thing is not required for your unit because that one at the other unit just around the corner will suffice. And I would just make that statement on the narrative too, just clarification up front. That like in accordance with the fire. Okay. Japan. Okay, and so is that required then for this? Yeah, well, okay. So I misspoke before. Okay, so just for clarification, the engineer guys decide whether or not how you're going to handle the water drainage, and if you think a retention pond is required, so state it. Yep, and if not, then yeah, if you, I would assume that you would do some calculations or something based upon, you know, the areas like the roofs and kind of what water drainage you would have and how amount or a certain amount for the flow around the area and then moisture of the soil content, whatever the hardness is that you would figure that. So, all right. Okay, 2Q, the location specifications for any existing or proposed above or below ground storage facilities of toxic hazardous substances and stuff. And I think already on here, you stated there's not going to be anything on there, and then you're not having anybody allowed to have storage of hazardous type materials in your unit. So you're good to go there. Again, elevation drawings of the buildings and floor plans to be occupied. A statement identifying all, again, federal, state, or local permits required, if any. That's something I'm sure is like the engineers and stuff. If you identify any of those things in your normal process, then please list those. And anticipated project completion schedule. Again, I mentioned that already. Just in times of, you know, when you start this thing, roughly how long would it be? So we don't need exact dates, just like a template we could lay over once this project started. Um, Then other information and to you, such other information is necessary to enable the reviewing body to determine whether the proposed site plan shall conform to the provisions of the ordinance, but not necessarily limited aerial photographs. So you're not required to take aerial photographs, but you're welcome to put them in there, just understand the area. The same thing with the traffic impact and mitigation reports. Again, check with the road commission if they have a requirement for something like that because of the turns. And I guess there, do you have right now or a kind of generic um number that you use for, X number of units, these type, you would expect, how many vehicles per day or general time frames do they come in? It's kind of tough, I know.
We have facility over 500 units. And I don't think there's ever been more than 5 cars at a time on the whole project. And if there is, one of them's mine and one of them's my son.
Yeah, for the,
They all-
And I do agree that this is a little bit different because obviously, the major weekends and things like that, there'll be more traffic in and
Right.
out, people getting stuff. And then that being said, in the winter, you may go all day and have nobody come in.
right.
So it's a little bit different, but yeah, we can get some sort of number.
Yeah, and if you have an understanding of that, and when you talk to the road commission folks, and because that has been area concern, especially with the other ones that went in, and right now we don't know what the other, it's not completed yet, it's not filled out, so you don't know, and we haven't gone through a summer or a winter period, so there's no evidence of how that's going to be affecting the area. They think it's going to be pretty minimal. I think it's going to be quite different. In the periods, again, the one going in, they got certain limited hours and they're more hours like a 9 to 5 kind of hours. And I think they're going to see some issues with that accessibility, especially like on Thursday evening, through the weekend from Thursday through Mondays. They've been, weekends up here now been extended with the remote capabilities and stuff. So there's been a lot that's changed from what it was 10, 15 years ago. A lot of people come up Thursday nights now and leave on Monday or Tuesdays. Okay. And the general standards going on to section 3. The LL, we need to see everything first to see how it's pans out, but basically you're looking for, again, kind of blending the area in relation to the size and the use. There's to get a general idea, if you weren't aware, that online is posted the Gerrish Township Master Plan, which kind of gives you a summary, and those are supposed to be updated every 5 years. I think we did it a few years ago. Just the one there is current. Basically it's a residential area, but you can look through there for just a synopsis to give yourselves an idea of, what the intent of the community is and what they're looking for in developments and stuff. The site plan shall be in a character that supports the district, with the development to be located. And I think Tom Barber already gave his thoughts on that some of the stuff looks like it should fit in there. I have concerns with the amount of units in there, but those are subjective. And 3C, the site plan shall not impede the normal orderly development, improvement, or enjoyment of the property around there. Again, when we see everything, make that determination, but 3D, the site plan shall preserve the environmental character insofar as minimizing the impact of disturbances to the site, with the trees and the vegetation, the water and the wetlands and stuff around there. 3E, the site plan shall provide for removal of stormwater. We talked about that already.
Hey, can I interrupt you there
Yes.
for
Yes.
right there? I just want to bring to your attention that the Roscommon County has implemented a stormwater management standards for the whole county. And basically any development that requires a site plan needs to fill out some paperwork regarding that. You can go to the county and find it, or we can send you a copy of their standards and stuff for that, just so you have them. I don't think it's going to be a big deal with this type of project, but just
Yeah. Yeah.
One
The
of
question
those
was,
things.
is that through the Drain Commission?
not necessarily. I don't know if they're managing that or not. It doesn't, I've got it in front of me here, and they need 3 copies of the plan. But now they don't really say who's overseeing it.
Yeah. Jason, do you know, like, time to specify 3 copies of the plan? Is that included in the 10 copies? Right, but are those 10 copies? I know those copies are distributed elsewhere. Okay. Uh, 3F, the site plan shall provide vehicular, non-motorized circulation and parking in a manner that's safe, da, da, da. You did address in your email, I believe it was. Yeah, I guess I did, that page I didn't print out. Okay. No, this is.
What are you looking for, Mike?
He mentioned, I remember seeing some of, oh yeah, there it is, in parking. Yeah, I did have it. Did you submit something on, I don't see this mentions parking in relation to the tree stuff, but it doesn't mention like the number of lots. I thought I saw something that maybe you put down about how many parking spaces. Yeah, okay, that's where I saw it. So you weren't, because of the gravel, you weren't going to put lines on there, but you would put, I assume you'd put like a sign or something up there. Yeah, right. Right. Now here, because you're not having and I don't know without reviewing the ordinance specifically, is it required to have, I mean, for here, to me, it's like putting a handicap spot in front of a mountain pathway kind of a thing. You know, people come, you'd be handicapped at that, be close to this building, but it's not close to the other. So I question whether or not that's actually needed in this context, the way the things are laid out with no office building. Because if it's just all units and people pull right up to the units. Yeah, they're not, yeah, you're not putting, not. Yeah, so is that something that we just say not required here? I would say that, okay. But we still had X number of units here, or they still have X number of spaces per unit. There was some. Right.
Not a large number of people on site.
Right, right. And
A little bit of a courtesy.
I mean, I mean, to me, just looking at that, this, you're not having any additional outside storage. So the extra parking you have here with the numbers seems to go there. I have to relook and see if that meets the requirements per unit. But I think with, with all the other stuff, I think that's sufficient personally.
Sufficient.
Yeah, Mike, the ordinance requires one parking space for each 20 units. But I think that can be pretty subjective. We can work with you on that one. 'Cause you just don't need it, I don't think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
'cause-
appreciate that because it's like you said, almost everybody parks in front of their unit. I don't know. I mean, I don't know of anybody that doesn't park in front of their unit.
Yeah, the only, maybe somebody's coming to help them unload or something.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I guess I would give you that one. Yeah.
But with as many units as you got, I mean, your plan's showing 16, including the handicap space, so I think you got it covered already myself. But
Okay. Thanks.
Lost my spot. 3D. Okay. Yep. 3G. The park. Yeah, is up there. Not right.
I think you're on 4D. Yeah, Mike, I think you were on 4D. The
Oh, 4.
next one's landscaping.
Something's not right here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's 3F was the parking. Okay. So I'm just going on to 4. So there's several articles there. 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 20. They all address stuff that's required in here. And it's just, they give you the specific stuff for the stuff we just talked about above. And going on to 5A, again, we talked about the master plans there. You can read that over and 5B, with the general, and be harmonious with the general objectives and intent of the ordinance. 5C, be of sufficient character to be compatible with adjacent land uses. 5D, be designed, operated so to be appropriate appearance, harmony, we talked about that. The pedestrian and location of vehicles and parking areas. No hazardous stuff's on there. Be served adequately. Be served adequately by the essential public facilities and services such as roads, police, fire, etc. That I believe you got checked. Not involve uses, possess materials detrimental to the people welfare. You did address that. In 5H, yeah, the materials and detrimental to the, I think you've hit that. Not create additional requirements to public costs for public facility, utility facilities and services. The only thing I can think there would be if there was some point where the traffic was, excessive or causing problems, and that's not going to be known until you actually build the thing. So that I think is met at this point. Could be changed after the fact. Comply with the site building standards. That's just a general catch-all. And then there was additional special land use compliance. When we changed from the or modified the C1 zoning districts to include the mini storage, we included additional section in the zoning ordinance that talks to some of the special things on there, and so looking for right now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, well,
Obviously, a lot of this stuff that is here was one day possible.
right.
So, in that, such a fire.
Yeah. The board.
If you go through and you spend.
Yeah. I'm gonna,
So what today is about is knowing whether or not we should proceed forward with doing all of that detail. And get you to the final site plan approval, which I you can't vote on it.
But
That's really the intent.
we did discuss it briefly last meeting, and we were all pretty much on board with the idea of you guys going ahead and doing this. Like I said, we can't vote on it right now, but I think majority of us here were okay with what you're doing.
The only concern, I mean, I'll be upfront about the stuff. If I'm just real leery about the amount of stuff going in there with the current one that's up and with another year's proposal and with the gentlemen's that they're talking about proposing in addition. But that my thinking is that the general consensus of the board at this point, I think, is that this stuff meets the criterions and that would satisfy the stuff to go forward and it's the next step. He can't say what the township board's going to vote on, yay or nay. I just know that I mentioned it at the sketch plan review for the same thing. And the concern is we had some 260 or some, basically over a little less than 300, I think, units in the immediate Gerrish Township area. And we changed there was definitely a need for a shortage of storage units in the area, and particularly for vehicles and access for like and toys, stuff like that, that a little bit different than the standard, extra boxes sticking in the attic from, Johnny's, staying home with the parents or at a college. But with that, we had the one that came in is, essentially doubled that size, and it hasn't been used yet. And then with your proposal, a little less than 300, another proposal for around 300 or so, and all in that same area, that is that going to be met by the needs of, the local community? I personally think they would all be filled, but not necessarily, in my opinion, with all Gerrish people, but it depends. So your proposal right now is a little bit different than what I was anticipating, what you talked about the last for the two that you were just talking about, more, general small size storage units for mass, number of properties, and or mass number of units, essentially all the same size, small areas. This right here, I think, is more conforming because you have sizes you could put vehicles and other recreational stuff in, which is, I think, what the need for the community is. And that's what the other gentleman's stuff that they're proposing too, does that. So there's a need for that. And if there's any opposition, the opposition is me, and it's just based upon just the sheer numbers and the impact of the community for that, and taking a big area and make essentially clear cut for that. And that's, I'm trying to be upfront, about this stuff, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't go in.
The board will, I think that we have the numbers on the board to say, yes, go ahead and do what you're going to do.
Yeah. And in the stuff here, really, that, you present the plan stuff to us, and we go over and try and help you say, okay, here's what we think we'd like to do it, what you need to do to make it happen. And then doing that, if you've met the requirements in here, the requirement that I'm talking about is something that's really a subjective thing. And that, I'm not going to hide that, but I think it's going to be, I think it's something that it's worth it to go forward, and it'll be received positively.
Do you have any other questions for us?
Yep.
Okay.
Just,
Tom?
Yes. I can't hear anybody but you guys. The
Turn that
the
on.
audience, I can't hear.
I just wondered if I could get a copy of that link to the stormwater. You said they had it up the webpage?
just a quick question. That's our fire chief right there, Jim Fisher. And he would be the one to check with as far as access to the buildings. What they need for, fire, ambulance, whatever. So he would be the one that could guide you the best. So just get a hold of him sometime because I see, on the one section here, it says it had to be accessible from all sides. On that side of building E is only 9 feet. I don't know how wide a track you need for your vehicles. Is 9 feet wide enough? Okay. Okay. That'll answer some of your questions. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Jim, just to recap for you, that they have submitted a site plan, and it's just right now, it's just the primary one page. It doesn't have all the other stuff. And as we were kind of discussing that, they want to get some clarification, to go forward, and, is this something, and we essentially said, we think it is, to meet, the stuff, but there's still a lot more information they got to get, but they were holding off on some of that. Now, we don't have a quorum tonight to vote one way. We still need a lot more information from them on this stuff, but the guidance we gave them, there is that you said they do not need a water retention, I'm sorry, a holding tank, that holding tank is being satisfied by the other site that's going in right now. They'll get with us, they'll present a plan for the drainage stuff and make their determination from the engineering perspective, whether or not they think they need a retention thing, or how they're going to mitigate it if they don't have one. And then we did mention that there's what they've given us here in plans, essentially 5 huge buildings, different separation distance between them. A couple of them don't meet the minimum 30 feet. There, we talked about the widths on the edge of the properties, where it's just 9 feet on both sides of the building at the northern part and the southern part. And that's what they'll talk to you about on there. Those 2 buildings will not have access entries from the backside, only in the inside. And then I know there was another issue about land split stuff that I think is going before the Board of Commissioners on this next agenda. This coming. Yeah, so the point that we asked about the density of the buildings, and right now with the current structure, your building square footage as is like 30%, roughly 31% of the whole area. So that's under the 50% density of the building floor plan to the
I,
I did a calculation based upon, you said there was like 5 acres or something like that, and you gave it like 249,000 square feet. And it was, yeah, it was like 78,000 square feet for the building. So that was below the 50%. That's roughly 30%. But if there was a land split, I don't know if that included that portion that would be split. So I don't know.
Yeah, the land split, we did not include that. So the part that we're keeping is the 5.5 acres.
Okay, so that's, yeah. So
It'll
you
be
got
good. Yep, the number's good.
Yep. So you're good to go there for the density issue. Yeah, I think with that, so what we'll do in the minutes, we'll sum up what we discussed. They'll technically be informal minutes because we didn't officially have a meeting, but we still got the discussions to give you feedback.
Hey,
And-
Tom, excuse me.
Yeah, and then I'll sum up what we talked about here, and then we'll send this to you in a separate letter from Jason. I'll put it together as a secretary and then run it through make sure I got things right, and then we'll send it to you in the letter. And then we'll also include it in the minutes, the unofficial minutes of the thing, with, a little more clarification, just so you understand. If there's any questions with that, please, again, work through Jason. We won't work with you directly. We'll do it all through Jason is a building and zoning guy. So
I just have one quick question. And maybe you guys said this, I couldn't hear everything other than you guys at the table. So if this needs to go in front of the board, how soon before their meeting do they need to have, all the information that they need? Cause I know different townships have different requirements, 2 weeks, 10 days, a month, stuff like that.
right,
Prior to our next, your final site plan, prior to that, you'll need to have everything that they've addressed today at least 2 weeks prior to that meeting.
right. For right now, I don't think there's enough here, especially with the quorum stuff, to recommend that we have a public hearing before our next meeting. So my thinking there is our next scheduled meeting is second week in March. And then depending on the information we get from you. Yeah, so March 14th is our next meeting.
So
So-
if we got all this stuff to you by the end of February, would that give you enough time to get on the March meeting or no?
Yeah, that for the planning commission.
Yes.
And then after that, if we would go over it again, a little more here, and then reviewing it. And my guess is it'll be probably sufficient. You wouldn't have to have all the T's crossed and I's dotted and stuff, because some of those things can wait till the final site plan, but we get more detail on these things. It would be potentially approved, or we can't officially approve it till we have a public hearing. So the next meeting would have this board meeting. And then the next scheduled meeting after that, we can do a special meeting in April And the intent is to do on the even months. We're not going to have regular meetings, but if we had stuff on the agenda, we could have. Now, because it's a special meeting, I would offer up that we wouldn't necessarily need to do it on this second Thursday. We could move it up, earlier, for the public hearing, like at the end of March, early April timeframe. Is it possible? It's not set in stone, but.
So you're saying, just to clarify, go back in front of the planning commission in March
Right.
and then hopefully get in front of the board for their April meeting
Yeah. But before we can do that, we have to have a public hearing.
in
And
between.
yes. And normal scheduling would be like, mid-April for the second week in April for our follow-on meeting. Then we'd usually have a public hearing right prior to that. Now, what we could do is, because the special, we can schedule a special meeting, public hearing anytime. But to give, I would say that we would have a review, for that, do this again in the March meeting. And then within 2 or so weeks after that, we could have a public hearing, which is usually 15 minutes if you don't get much, opposition or any, and oh, the 15. Okay. I was thinking the 30. All right. So yeah. So at the next meeting in March, we could make a determination what we could do. And so we could probably 15 days to 2 weeks, have it by the end of March, early April. And then we can convene our next meeting immediately following that public hearing and to take the inputs and likely vote that it's good enough to go to make the recommendation to the board meeting, which you guys meet in April when?
The board meeting will be April 9th.
Yeah, so it's conceivable that we could get it done so it could be recommended to the board for their approval of the preliminary site plan. If the stuff is good enough and to our satisfaction after that public hearing, we could also determine it could be sufficient and enough to approve, to make the recommendation to the board too, not only for the preliminary site plan, but it would meet the final site plan. So it's possible to have it go before the board, which could potentially on the 9th of April.
That would be what we would shoot for,
Yeah,
yes.
that'd be the ideal. At the same time, we have another site plan review coming in for the same thing for the unit next door, which you received already. So we'll be reviewing that at our next meeting here in March as well. And depending on how that goes too. So we could combine everything all in one and, ideally, but then there is also, it's been publicly announced that the board supervisor, Dave Booty, is stepping down at the end of March. So there's going to be a turnover of supervisors here, and he's going to appoint somebody prior to the election. He's basically going to appoint somebody here in the, by early April or maybe at the March meeting. And I mentioned that because I don't know the ramifications about scheduling and what the incoming supervisor, would want to do with the schedules because, you get somebody new in, there's a lot of other stuff. So it's possibly some of these things could be pushed back, from that. So, I mean, the ideal thing is maybe April, it could be all passed and approved if everything looked right, but that's if everything goes as planned and no burps is a general.
Anything else?
Just real quick. Hey, Tom,
Yeah,
from all the conversations, you do agree that they can proceed? I mean, is that your
Proceed?
feeling? I know we can't vote on it, but should they continue?
yes,
Okay. Just so we have a consensus, that's all.
yeah.
Gary, you
No.
feel the same way?
Yeah.
Yep, so do I.
Yeah.
I think the others,
I just don't want you to spin your wheels and come back and say, never mind, we don't want it. So as long as you got 4 of us here that, like I said, we can't vote, but at least you get our opinions and what we feel. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what we need.
yeah, positive. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so
But
you
stay in
have
touch
our,
with Jason and
I do have a
Jim?
question.
go ahead.
Um, building E, your units are 20 by 40. Are you thinking you're gonna store boats, motorhomes, that type of thing in that building?
We're thinking, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of our, right now, that's what we're thinking according to demand, but yes.
Okay, well, the only thing that I notice is that 40 feet between the two buildings,
Isn't gonna be enough.
it ain't gonna be enough.
Yeah, I know.
Back a trailer.
And that's why we're hoping to keep the 25-foot driveways inside so we could get at least the 40 feet. Because we have some of those units at our current facility, and yeah, we need a little bit more room. So we're gonna have to try to do a little bit of reconfiguring with some of the sizes, maybe to try to figure that out.
I mean, I could throw out one option is also to look at possibly the big units maybe be putting at the end of the units.
Oh yeah, and
So-
loading units, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's ample space and stuff
Yep.
on there. So that, I mean, I just throw that as just a general, I mean, there's a trade-off of what storage things, but you could, at each of the ends, you could get a couple long things in, and that
We'll
may
have
suffice.
to do some figuring
Yeah,
out.
so it's,
Well, that was kind of where the question about the building density was, that what Mike was alluding to earlier, we did question whether are we overbuilding these things? And I'm assuming you guys have done some sort of studies or sort of math to figure out that there is enough need and so forth.
Yeah.
We do know there's a need because that's why we changed the zoning, because people came to us and were requesting it. So
Yeah, my mom and aunt, my aunt specifically, has had a place 2-3 miles down the road up there for 25-ish years. My mom's had a place up there for quite a while too, and just being up there a lot, pretty much my entire adulthood, I've kind of seen the need. And then once we got into this business in Saginaw, we could see, I've been looking for property up there for several years because I thought there was a need for it. And then once the ordinance was changed, that's when we, were able to find something.
excellent. Well, that's where our concern was, and it sounds like you're going into this eyes wide open, right?
Yep.
So I think it's a good use of the property, and it's going to provide us good service to the residents of the county or the township and part of the county.
Mhm.
good to go then for the.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You guys ready to move on to mobile home age limits?
Sure.
And third-party inspections.
On the kind of waiting for Jason to get in here, but I talked to him last week briefly, or 2 weeks ago, I forgot. And he mentioned that there was actually a findings, ruling on age limits for the mobile homes, I think in the state, that basically, in some cases, it ruled that you could not put age limits on there. And then I need to let him give you a summary of that, but I based upon what he said and some input from some of the legal advice is you don't want to do that, and or if you did it, it would be overruled likely, and so that anyways, when he gets back in the room here.
Okay. So what you're telling me is it might be a no-go.
Yeah, and Egan specifically said there was actually a ruling from, age limits from some other places, and it was in the court, precedence was set.
Okay.
Jason? You got to, the next topic on the agenda is the mobile home age limits. I mentioned briefly to them that what you had told me that there was a ruling from the state, but if you could just re-summarize that, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so I attended a code
mic on?
class. And it was on the inspections of pre-manufactured homes.
Can you hear him, Tom?
Yeah, yep.
And at the end of that, it was discussed, a question came up, can you put an age limit on the trailers that are coming into your community? And the answer was no, you can't. And I actually spoke to the Houghton Lake building inspector, who's also the Gladwin County inspector, and he lives in Gladwin. And he said, Gladwin County put an age limit on trailers and went to court and they lost. So I think that's kind of off the table.
Can you require any kind of inspection?
You know, it's the only time I can inspect a mobile home is if it's a rental, which is what we're doing right now. We do have that ability because we have adopted the property maintenance code and we have a rental ordinance. Other than that, we're very limited
Yep.
on what we can inspect on them.
You said when they pull them in, you can check the foundation and the
Right.
tie downs
Yep.
and the connections, but that's about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, I spoke to Dave Udy about it and it kind of is what it is. And I don't think we need to even pursue that a whole lot further.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
keep
the only option I could think of is if you want to specify the rentals, get an inspection to verify that they're meeting all the health and welfare kind of stuff.
For rentals?
Right.
Yeah, we're doing that. We do inspections on rental. I'm doing inspections on rentals right now.
Okay. So you're inspecting these ones as they come in then?
Yes, if they are being rented, we inspect them every 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're right. We might as well just punt it.
Yep, we're gonna punt that one.
Okay.
But I did have something else new come up. Unfortunately, that
Of course you did.
might need a little attention. So essentially what happened is our assessor got a combination request, wanted to combine two pieces of property. And she said, she came into my office and said, now, when each property has a dwelling, you can't combine them, correct? And I said, correct. You can't have two houses on one piece of property. So she denied the combination. And then the lady called me, you know, all upset. And I said, well, I was told you have a house on each dwelling. And she said, well, it's not a dwelling according to your ordinance. It's only used for sleeping. So it was kind of took me by surprise. And when you read the definition of a single family dwelling, it's used for eating, living, and sleeping. So that you have to do all three of those for it to be considered a dwelling. So I had to go and see Scott Hess about it. And unfortunately, she's kind of right. I was able to deny it because we then called it a accessory building and she had too much accessory buildings for the amount of property. So, and I explained that to her and she said, okay, well, at least that makes sense. And she just accepted it today. So, but when talking to Scott, we're going to have to address this in the ordinance. Otherwise, everyone can turn their pole barn into bunkhouses because it's not a dwelling according to our definition. Some goofy loophole, basically.
In that same subject, do we have to worry about shipping containers?
Well, it's something we could easily, right in the same section under accessory buildings,
as simple as shipping containers are prohibited.
Okay.
There, my understanding that you actually can have two dwellings on a property if it's a certain, above a
Right,
certain
but
size.
there's already an ordinance that describes where and what you have to do that.
Okay.
So if you meet those requirements.
Yeah, I know
great.
there was like,
Basically, Scott and I think both agreed that something, there's a section in the accessory buildings ordinance in Article 20 that talks about habitation of accessory buildings. And I think basically at the end of that, we just need to simply add something as simple as accessory buildings or sleeping in accessory buildings is prohibited.
yeah, but I think some of that's already like garages. I mean, I know that there are people out there that do that, but I think it specifies in it that you're not allowed to in a garage.
Doesn't say you're not allowed to sleep in a garage.
Now this shed also has plumbing, you said.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it has a bathroom. There's
bathroom.
no kitchen.
No, but a bathroom is what I
Right.
meant. Yeah.
It was built in 1953. You know, it's just, we just have to address that. We don't want people sleeping in accessory buildings. Simple, sweet. You know, you can have a bathroom in a garage. You can turn it into a man cave. You can play poker out there and hang out there. But we don't want people sleeping in them and turning them into bunkhouses. And I guess we need to address that.
Well, there is a movement of types with the housing shortage and so forth. Larger cities are actually changing their zoning to allow an accessory sleeping quarters to their existing buildings.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually quite a big movement. They're small, they're compact. They may or may not have utilities as far as a bathroom and stuff.
Mhm.
But that's part of where an aging parent's coming to live with the children, or
Mhm.
children moving back in with the parents. It's actually becoming more normal than you would think, but it's something we can look into. And I mean, the way you would control it is by, lot density or lot size. Property size has to be so big for something like this to happen. But
Mhm.
there's a lot of areas that are amending their zoning to allow these and the shipping containers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And tiny
Well, that's
homes,
part of
condominiums.
that's part of the mini house thing, the
Yeah.
tiny house movement.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's something we want to do, but just be
Well,
aware that there is some
Yeah.
positive.
I know we years ago created the ordinance, where you can't have a second story on a garage because they didn't want apartments above garages. So I'm assuming still want the same thing. Otherwise, I can tell you right now, everyone's putting a bunkhouse in their garage. Right.
So you
Hey.
want us to look at something specific, or what are you thinking?
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll talk to a couple board members and make sure that's something they want to make sure that they address. And if they do, then we'll look into how we're going to address it.
Okay.
But Scott thinks, if we don't want half the garages to be bunkhouses, we need to put something in the ordinance, because if that gets out that just because of this weird non-conforming structure, then everybody can jump on this bandwagon. So,
Okay.
and then I guess there's one other thing, if I could just bring it up. The Storage Rentals of America, that's the one that's being built right now. They called me and talked to me about signage. And they said they would like to put a sign up on the 75 side, so it can be seen from I-75, so at the back of the property. And I said, well, it should have been on the site plan, and it wasn't. And I said, but you can only have one ground sign. You can have one wall sign and one ground sign, according to the ordinance. And they said, well, what if we, on the roadside, put a wall sign up on the building and we put the ground sign up on 75? And I said, well, I'm gonna have to, talk to the planning commission to see, get their thoughts on it. My thought is, as long as it meets the ordinance, I'm not too worried about it. But I did, technically, I guess maybe they would have to come back to a meeting and show where these signs are gonna be on the site plan, but. So I just wanted to get the board's thought on that.
And there's a size limit too on wall
Correct, yeah,
signs.
they would have
Yeah,
to meet. the
all
ordinance,
that.
Size, height, setbacks.
Okay.
They would require a permit and.
I wonder how that would affect the landscaping they'd want to do at the road. Now they want to leave a hole in the landscaping so you can see the sign.
Possibly.
So yeah, I think they need to come back with a revised site plan and basically showing the entryway and the back of the property of what
Okay.
they're thinking of and location and landscaping and all that stuff that goes with it.
Okay,
As a start anyway.
alrighty.
Yeah, because the other ones go through, then you're talking, a whole bunch of signs and stuff out there.
Well, I told them they need to get me, a drawing of where they're proposing and what they're proposing. So
Right.
hopefully we'll get that.
But that, yeah, and to me, that's something that, yeah, you could do it. And I would almost say that, again, that'd be something that would encroach the, blending in with the area. All of a sudden you're getting big billboards on the backside.
Well, if it was an existing building, business, they could do it as long as they meet the ordinance and got a permit. But I'll certainly tell them that get some drawings and plans of what they propose and where they propose it, and just tell them they'll have to get it back on the agenda and come in and show the commission. All right,
Now, would that have to be approved then too by the township board ultimately?
I suppose.
Special use.
Yep.
Yeah.
The maximum size, Jason, I think you said was 60 square feet,
I think it's 64, Tom.
54.
It goes by size of building. I despise the sign ordinance, by the way, but it goes by size of the width of the building that faces the road. But there is a minimum and a maximum as well.
I don't recall the top, but isn't there some landscaping between the end of the buildings? And
What's that now?
isn't there some landscaping kind of covering up the buildings from the highway?
Oh, I'm sure there is. I don't know. I've never looked at it from the highway side, but. So I'm sure it's all woods at the back there.
Yeah, it's pretty much wooded. It's sparse, but there's trees. I mean, if they're gonna do a site plan of that, make sure they show the I-75 on that site plan, so we get an idea how far away it is from the interstate right away, I guess.
Yeah.
Or it's gotta be on their property. They can't put it on anything else, so.
Right, yeah, it's gotta be 10 feet from any property line.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd just like to see the relationship in some shape or form.
Sure. I'll do that. I think that's all I had.
It was enough.
All right, then I guess we can move on to septic systems.
Well, it's up to you guys. If you want to move on or you want to call it a night.
I agree.
So moved. Huh?
Yeah, I did. And also then we get the, do it again at the next one. Now, next one actually could be, you're going to have two site plans to review. The other one, I don't know if you've seen it yet or if they mailed it to you, Tom, but on the one for the other, the Zimmerman place, their package is pretty comprehensive, already with the stuff. And so it make it a little bit smoother, I think, to go through a little bit quicker. So I think we could handle it at the next meeting.
I'll try and get that to you tomorrow, Tom.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, I haven't seen it yet, but I know you
I
just.
haven't emailed it yet, so.
Yeah, Tom, I want to I mentioned all the stuff about the calendar scheduling. Nobody chimed in. I did, was there anything that you disagreed with there about, the process or?
It's gonna be pretty tight by the time the public hearing is so hard to schedule with one newspaper and all the times on that, and then everybody's meetings, so.
Right. And that was the other concern too, is with the new turnover, with the board with
I don't
David.
think that'll affect it anything.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be like, oh, you come in and, run them forward and handle stuff. Or if it's,
That's not for us to worry about anyways.
no, but I mean, it could.
I don't think it'll be an issue.
Affect the,
I don't think it'll be an issue at all.
I don't think it'd be too big of an issue. We're a good board. They respect our opinion, and if we do, if everything's there, it's
yeah, I'm just wondering for like schedule. I don't know, you get somebody
Oh.
to come in, there's like a turnover stuff and you got to get,
As long as they have your recommendation by the work session,
yeah.
I think that's all they need.
and a quorum.
Yeah. Yes, that always
Yeah.
helps. That helps.
And I think that may be an issue here for the next couple meetings too. Just because I know that, Val travels a lot, I mean, any of us could get sick or, something come, but his is the one thing where he's out of the area off and on that, and it may have even slipped his mind being kind of like an off meeting thing. And he didn't, I mean, he's got the emails and stuff that we've been sending out, so he should be aware there, but
Right.
I don't know where, I mean, he could be traveling and not have access to stuff. And I mean, he goes all over the country and for his,
Are we
This
short?
job.
Are we short 2 members? I mean,
we have one vacancy, but because of Val, in order to have a quorum, we still have we got 7 members,
You and Greg are gone. So
6 that are here, 2 that are gone right
Okay.
now. So that puts us at 4.
I
And we
forgot
need-
Greg. That's what I was thinking. So we really need to find another member.
Yeah. And that's what I also did that, and the board approved it for the zoning, for the ZBA, is that we got 2 extra alternates. And the press
Any
there
of them
was,
guys interested?
well, I've seen one, and that's they're both named Jim, and I forget his name. The Jim that's come one time is the head of the GLUA board, Barnwell, yeah. And the other one, I have never talked to him or spoken to him, and so we have additional. But the thing is, we've got a couple people on there with health issues and stuff on the ZBA. Then you got one person that's out of pocket, the chair in Florida right now, the same thing, and he's usually not back till May. So it was the same thing about, want to make sure we got enough members. We can vote some stuff. If you get a quorum, you don't need to have, the majority of you can have the majority of the quorum that shows up. So you can get a vote 3-1 for most things. Some requirements, and on ZBA 2 require that you have to have majority vote of the quorum total. So you need 4 to pass. Like a ZBA, you could have 3 people show up because you got 5 there, you got a quorum, but you still need 3 people you can't get a vote of 2-1 and pass something.
Right.
And then the problem here is that some cases, and this is with Tom being on here, or with Terry, that in some cases you are not allowed to vote twice. Meaning, if you voted for an issue on one thing and it comes back for like an appeal, you can't vote on it on the other board. So if you voted for something here, Terry, then you may or may not be able to vote on it at the township board. So you have to recuse yourself. And then if there's issues with them showing up, so some of that stuff you kind of want to, I guess, like the whip or whatever, you got to kind of make sure we know, okay, we got enough people to vote for the stuff at the different meetings and want people being potentially gone. But The other thing I wanted to verify with the annual report is took Tom's inputs and adjusted just a little bit just for grammatic stuff. And I had a wrong thing on there with Greg's tenant stuff on there from the old sheet. But obviously we don't have a quorum here to vote, but I was going to wait till next time because Greg has been gone on a cruise or something like that this week. So he hasn't had an opportunity to see it. So at the next meeting, recommend we vote one way or the other, just for approval. It's just an admin thing. And then one of the things on there I couldn't find because I went through all the minutes for our stuff in the board's minutes, the township board's minutes and workshops. Terry's, Val's, and Greg's term was renewed, I believe. I put that on there as of 1 July, but I couldn't find it in the minutes of the current board or the township board where it was done and when they did it.
And my term is over in 24.
Right. Okay. So I can change that back. Yeah. Because you're the posting, you're only one. And I said that to somebody last year. And I said, no, you can still do it for 3 years. But I can't find the minutes for the backups.
I'll see if I can find it, but yeah,
Yeah.
this position goes with the term. So my term is up in November of 24.
Right.
So, because I think right now I saw 26.
Yeah. I put it on there for July for each year. And I thought it had to be updated for your positions for the ex facto things. You had to do it once a year at the time. So that'll be a date to correct. Okay. That's all I had. You might want to call it, I guess. Well, did you have anything else, Terry?
Well,
No, I'm good. I'm good. That's good.
Any new business? We deal with that later, another time,
Yeah.
nothing? And then any other public comments?
Yeah. We
Mike, you got anything to say? Yeah.
So other than that, I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Yeah. Good motion. We don't have a quorum, so we didn't exist, but
Yeah.
I'll do a minutes up there and I'll caveat them as unofficial
Thank you.
minutes that the quorum was not met but still discuss this stuff. So we have something for the record
Yep.
because we still had technically a quorum of people talking from the board. So, okay.
Always good to see you, Tom.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, just label it discussion took place. Just don't call it minutes,
Yeah. Okay.
8:58.